This is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Here now, Tony Bruschi.
Every now and then a story comes along that forces you to step back and look at every decision that was made by the people in power and ask, how did anybody think this was going to end well? That's the case we're talking about. The Morgan Geyser case has reached that point. Some may say it reached that point a long time ago. We are now just reaping the rewards. Don't fear the reaper. Pardon the pun. We now know who she was with, why she ran away, and how easily she slipped out of the system that was supposed to contain her. What officials have uncovered since she was caught, and what happens next. And the picture that emerges isn't just disturbing, it's infuriating. Let your infuriation be heard in the comment sections here on our YouTube channel. If you're listening to the podcast, just look up this same title on our YouTube channel and let us know your thoughts. Just go to Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi on YouTube and you will find us, and that's where you can leave your comments. Please hit subscribe while you're there if you're not already subscribing so you don't miss out on our commentary and coverage on this and the many cases we cover for you right here. So let's start with the freshest part of this story, because this is what sets the tone for everything that follows. When police finally found Morgan Geyser hours after she disappeared from a supposedly supervised group home, she wasn't wandering confused through the woods or sitting alone somewhere having a mental break. She wasn't calling for help. She wasn't panicked. She was asleep behind a truck stop in Posen, Illinois, more than 150 miles away, just south of Chicago, with a fully grown adult man, a man who has now stepped forward to say very casually that she ran because of him. This man, identified in multiple reports as Chad Charlie Mecca, is roughly in his late 30s to early 40s, depending on the outlet. He claims he met Morgan at church. He claims he had nothing to do with planning her escape, and yet somehow, by total coincidence, he ends up sleeping beside her behind a gas station after she cut off an ankle monitor and flees a state-run facility. And not only that, he also says he believes she ran because they were going to separate us. He says she was afraid the group home was going to put limitations on their relationships. Well, you should be afraid, because that's what it's supposed to do. That's why she's there. You should probably be in one too, I'm going to take a wild guess at. Let me repeat this. A 22-year-old woman with a history of delusion-fueled violent behavior, placed on supervised release, somehow formed a close enough bond with an older man that identifies as a woman that she allegedly ran away because she believes staff were going to keep them apart. I know it's a lot. That alone should have been caught months ago, if they were so closely monitoring her activities as they were supposed to by court mandate. That alone should have shut down her release plan before it ever got off the ground. But here we are. Mecca was arrested for criminal trespass and giving police a false name. He's out now, and he's talking, and his version of events paints a picture of someone who had far more access to Morgan than any responsible supervised release program should have allowed. If the state truly believed she was low risk enough to live in a neighborhood filled with families and children's, but still needed 24/7 supervision, how in the world did she form a relationship like this, let alone maintain it? That brings us to the moment of capture. When officers confronted her, Morgan did what people do when they know exactly what they're doing. She lied. She gave a fake name. She tried to conceal her identity. And only when pressed further did she tell officers that she had done something really bad, instructing them to just Google me. It's not the behavior of someone confused or disoriented. That's the behavior of someone who was fully aware she had fled custody, fully aware she was being sought, and fully aware that what she was doing was wrong. This alone shatters a narrative that some people want to cling to, the idea that she was in a fog or struggling with disorganized thinking or unaware of her actions. No! She knew. She made deliberate choices, and an entire chain of events that allowed those choices to unfold is what we need to talk about now, because the escape itself didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened because the system built a runway for it. Let's walk through the timeline, because it's kind of damning. On Saturday night, around 8:15 p.m., Morgan is last seen at the group home in Madison, Wisconsin, where she'd been placed under the state's conditional release program, the same neighborhood that didn't tell anybody that she's going to be their neighbor. This placement was on Crunkle Drive, a residential neighborhood with houses, families, children playing in yards, people walking dogs, and not one of those people had any idea that a woman who once nearly murdered a child to satisfy a hallucinated figure was living amongst them. Why didn't they know? Because the court sealed the address. Not for the neighbor's safety, for the program's protection. The first home that was selected for her in Sun Prairie fell apart when residents found out who was about to move in. They understandably protested, so rather than reassess whether releasing her was a good idea, the system's solution was to choose a new location and make sure nobody found out. This is how you end up with a quiet street in Madison unknowingly housing someone who once stabbed a friend 19 times in the woods. This is how you wake up after the escape and say, "We had no idea anyone dangerous lived here. We didn't even know this was a group home." This is how you create a situation that feels ripped straight out of a horror movie. In a lot of ways, it feels like Halloween. Michael Myers. He's escaped. Well, who thought it'd be a good idea to put him in a group home in the middle of a neighborhood with an ankle monitor? Well, that piece of plastic, that's going to do well. You do realize this is the person who thinks there's a fictional creature calling her from the woods to murder children. Oh, that was a long time ago. She's better. She's not. She's a danger to herself and she's a danger to others. Let's stop playing pretend here. Because who's the crazy one? When you set her up in a situation like this and hope nothing bad happens, who's the crazy one? The one who sees the Slender Man in the woods? Or the one who sees a fully rehabilitated, sane, non-dangerous woman? In Morgan. But the real failure is what happened next. Around 9:30 p.m., Morgan cuts off her GPS monitor, the only physical mechanism keeping track of her movements. And the alert, well, you're going to think this is how, okay, boom, alarms are going off. It's like those ADT commercials, and everybody's, oh my God, get to that road, get to that house. Michael Myers is escaping. Now, the Department of Corrections received a notification that the device was malfunctioning. I guess that's one way to say it was cut off. Not tampered with, not removed, not detached. Maybe they got the Kmart clearance ankle bracelets before they all shut down. We missed that update. They treat it like a technical issue, a glitch. Something to follow up on later. Well, almost 2 hours pass before the DOC calls the group home to ask if the device is actually malfunctioning. And let's pause there. That alone is unacceptable. When you're monitoring someone with this history, a tamper alert should not be treated like a dropped Wi-Fi signal. It should trigger immediate action. Instead, it's treated as routine, so routine, in fact, that it takes hours before anyone bothers to confirm whether she's actually physically present. By the time DOC finally calls the home, staff check her room, her bed, the house. Well, she's gone hours ago. She's fled the building, removed state equipment, and disappeared into the night. DOC then enters a warrant in around midnight. And you're thinking, okay, little couple delays here in the hours. This has got to get better, right? Because this isn't really Halloween Part 48. Welcome to Wisconsin. But crucially, they do not directly notify local police. Not the city police, not the sheriff's department, not anyone who could, actually start looking for her. Instead, the warrant quietly exists in a digital system while Morgan crosses a state line. Madison police, the people who would have been responsible for the search, do not learn she's missing until around 7:45 the next morning. Rise and shine, the boogeyman got out last night. When the group home calls 911 to report her disappearance is when they find out, at 7:45 the next morning. The police arrive around 8 a.m., begin their investigation. At that point, Morgan is already long gone. She's with Mecca. She's traveling across state lines. She's over 150 miles away, and she will not be seen again until Illinois police stumble across her by chance. Imagine being the victim's family finding out after the fact that the girl who nearly killed your daughter was not only living freely in a neighborhood, but that she escaped, traveled, and was missing for nearly a full day before anyone bothered to call the police. This isn't a failure. This is a collapse. So where are we now? What charges is Morgan facing? What comes next? Well, as of now, her conditional release is almost certainly going to be revoked. Although stranger things have happened, that process will probably be fast. Although stranger things have happened, the state's not going to argue that she should remain free after cutting off her monitor, lying to police, and fleeing across state lines. So we return to Wisconsin under guard after waiving extradition, which she did quickly, and a judge will hold a revocation hearing. That hearing will almost certainly send her back to a locked psychiatric institution, likely for years, until Slenderman H2O comes out, and we do this all over again, except it's a different house with different teenagers and a different individual that she travels with. There will also be new charges for escape, though because she was under civil commitment rather than a criminal sentence, the legal definitions get kind of murky. She could face new consequences for giving a false name to police, but the bigger fallout is going to land on the adult man that she was with, the group home she escaped from, and the state agencies responsible for monitoring her. Charlie Mecca, the man with her in Illinois, was charged with trespassing and obstructing identification. That could escalate depending on what investigators uncover about his involvement. He denies planning the escape, but he admits they were close. Close enough that she believed her future in the group home was incompatible with their relationship. That should alarm every person listening to this. It means that while the state believes it had a handle on her risk, she was forming attachments, making decisions, and crafting plans without supervision catching any of it. The group home, for its part, is under intense scrutiny as well. The staff's delay in reporting, their inability to secure her movements, their failure to prevent her from leaving with an adult male, the lack of vigilance in monitoring her mental state, that's going to be investigated heavily, hopefully. We're watching. The Department of Corrections is also being grilled for their handling of the GPS alert. Treating a tamper alert as a device malfunction for someone with this history is unjustifiable. The entire purpose of that monitor is to detect tampering, and yet it took hours to act. And even then, the action was incomplete. Police were not notified until the next day. What does that tell us? That this probably isn't an isolated incident. When you see this level of decay, this level of rot, this level of slow response, this level of, oh, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. It's probably a pattern. This is probably how they respond to most ankle monitor alerts, just like this. Because to believe otherwise would be to believe that every single one of these steps that we're all looking at and being outraged by for their utter failure in follow-through, and every single one of these, they're all outliers. Those ain't good odds. That's more likely us over here being shocked at the reality of how our systems function. And it ain't good, kids. It ain't good. So we can be shocked all we want, but I'm going to guess this is probably the norm. Probably not the outlier that, oh my gosh, you respond like this to this and that one, but this one you do this. No, it's probably they're all like this. They're all, yeah, I'll get around to it. Or, okay, I'm trying to act as quick as I can. There's only one of me, and this really should be a 10-person job. It's one of those two. Or kind of a mix. Who knows? Politicians are already calling for reform. Legislators want hearings. Some are pushing for mandatory neighborhood notification when individuals with violent histories are placed in group homes. I bet a lot of people thought this already how it worked. Yeah, surprise. Others want changes on how NGI, not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect, used to be just called not guilty by reason of insanity, that's the I, releases are handled. Some are demanding more transparency from DHS. Others want entire policies rewritten. Meanwhile, and maybe this is good, maybe this will raise some awareness for some things that need to get fixed and changed, as long as their attention span can last more than the 5-day news cycle that this story has. Maybe we can get some of these things changed and call this dumb luck that this didn't turn into some other sort of homicidal maniac situation that could have been prevented. You caught her? Let's take a look here. What can be changed so this doesn't happen again with her or someone else? Meanwhile, the Department of Health Services is moving quickly to damage control mode. They're reviewing every step of their release plan, how it was approved, why red flags were dismissed, how outside relationships weren't caught, why she continued to have access to individuals who could influence her emotionally. Reports show they are preparing internal presentations on where staff failed, what decisions need reevaluating, and how to prevent something like this from happening again. Well, that sounds all lovely and well. You need somebody else to come in and do this shit. Internally, sorry. Again, thinking you've probably known this has been a problem for a while. Someone else needs to come in and blow this shit up and fix this. Because what has been going on is not working, has not been working, and you got damn lucky this time. And the only reason everybody's paying attention to this is because it's a high-profile case. How many others are getting out just like this every day that nobody knows their names of and don't have a character attached to it that sounds like something out of a 1980s horror film? Just saying. Probably been a problem. But at the center of all of this painful undeniability is the fact that the entire outcome was predictable. Predictable because the original crime was not something you treat lightly. Predictable because someone who committed delusion-fueled violence at 12 deserves the kind of long-term high-security management tailored for people with a history of extreme psychosis. With diagnosis like she has, it's not a punishment. It's a prevention from her hurting herself or others. It's insane to pretend otherwise. It's predictable because when staff reported red flags, violent drawings, strange relationships, troubling reading material, the court downgraded them as misunderstandings rather than indicators. The relationship that she was allegedly fostering with a murder memorabilia enthusiast. Went on for quite a while before that was picked up on. And then it was picked up on. They said, you got to stop this, but guess what? We're going to let you wear this piece of plastic around you. We're going to put you in a nice little Madison neighborhood here, okay? Okay, we're going to be good, right? Okay. We'll see you later. No trick-or-treating for you this year, but next year, I hear there's a great Slender Man costume. Oh, shit. We can't, oh. This wasn't an accident. It was a foreseeable consequence of decisions made by judges who wanted to believe she was rehabilitated, clinicians who believed her ability in a controlled facility would translate to stability in the real world, and bureaucrats who believe a GPS bracelet was an adequate substitute for secure walls. So what happens next? She returns to Wisconsin. She faces revocation. She lands back in a locked facility. There will be hearings. There will be new conditions. There will be public scrutiny. But the bigger story, the story we need to keep talking about, is how the system built this escape from the moment it chose hope over caution. Morgan Geyser didn't just walk out of a group home. She walked out of a decade of decisions made by people who convinced themselves they knew better than the history in front of them. And now every person involved, the judges, the agencies, the group home staff, will have to explain how they let it happen. Because this wasn't a mistake, it was a warning, and we should treat it as such. Give me your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube. If you're not already there, if you're listening to us on the podcast platforms, thank you. Please hit subscribe wherever that is. And please check us out on YouTube and hit subscribe there. We do greatly appreciate that. And especially your voice, your thoughts on this case. Just search the same title if you're not on YouTube, and you'll find it, and you can weigh in. And you can see the outrage on my face as I go through this insane story. Do better, Wisconsin. I'm Tony Bruschi. We will talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.